Hey, I'm back. So just wanted to make another video on the relationship between Hume and Nietzsche. It's a very critical, special relationship to really understand Nietzsche. It's overlooked quite a bit, especially by post-structuralists that really go for that language-only type of approach. Now, Hume is known specifically for his atheism, his critique of causality, and his critique of subjectivity. That critique of causality leads into and affects the critique of subjectivity. Now, some people will ask, what do you mean by critiquing causality? I was once given an example by someone that said, well, if I, witness a hammer, nailing a nail into a board, am I not seeing causality? Well, Hume is not exactly trying to go for that type of simplistic approach. What he would do is break it down logically into event A, event B, okay, two separate events. But from there, you can't see the cause. In other words, you can't see causality. You cannot show me and you cannot see the causal link, okay? That's what he's going after, all right? And to bridge how humans or people bridge causality, and then later on bridge our own subjectivity for ourselves in order so that we may have a foundation of knowledge. We create abstract relations between ideas, and which comes from experience, and it's through habit as well. Okay, so one of the main fundamental things that helps crystallize causality for ourselves and to create a subjectivity so we may know something is through habit. Okay, that's what Hume is trying to go after. So from there, Hume gives some famous examples. One is the famous example through playing billiards. The other one is through experiencing lightning or thunder or lightning. Okay, now from there, we do have an example, or actually more like an homage to Hume through Nietzsche and some of Nietzsche's various works. Some can be seen from his middle to his late works through that timeline. Some examples can clearly be seen in Beyond Good and Evil. The first chapter, let's see, Genealogy and Morals. The first essay, section 13, that's probably the best example where he pays a blatant homage to Hume with the example of using lightning. Others can be found in Twilight of the Idols, and the others can be found within his posthumous collected works entitled The Will to Power. Okay, so let me give an example that can be seen here, read from Genealogy and Morals, probably the best example by Nietzsche. So when he talks about, let's say, bodies, like either a body of water, an organism, he calls it a force. Later on in the 20th century, Gilles Deleuze really picks up on this and really starts to hash out what does Nietzsche mean by that. And what he's saying is that a force is a collection of self-subsistent parts in unity with each other. In other words, a force is a multiplicity and an infinite multiplicity of parts, self-subsistent parts that come together to form an assemblage. If one leaves, the quote-unquote whole, that is that force, differentiates. If another part/force comes into the greater assemblage, so to speak, it differentiates the force again in all the relationships. Okay, so with that, here is Nietzsche from the first essay, section 13 of Genealogy of Morals. A quantum of force is also a quantum of drive, will, action. In fact, it is nothing more than this driving, willing, acting. It is only through the seduction of language and through the fundamental errors of reason petrified in it. Language which understands and misunderstands all action as conditioned by an actor, by a subject. that it can appear otherwise. Just as the common people distinguish lightning from the flash of light and takes the latter as doing, as the effect of a subject which is called lightning, just so popular morality distinguishes strength from expressions of strength, as if behind the strong individual there were an indifferent substratum, which was at liberty to express or not to express strength. But no such substratum exists. There is no being behind doing, acting, becoming. The doer is merely a fiction imposed on the doing. The doing itself is everything. Basically, the common people represent the doing twice over. When they make lightning flash, that is a doing doubled by another doing. It posits the same event once as cause, and then once again as effect. So what Nietzsche is then saying from this is that we are splitting force in two. Okay, we're splitting. In other words, what he's seeing is that we are making the acting, the doing, as one distinct event. Okay, as the doing, quote unquote. And then distinguishing that from an assumed doer, which is then fictionalized. It becomes fictionalized and it functions as a substrate of reality, a foundation for acting and knowing. It is the doer behind the deed. And so you could see how we come into a logical problem where when we try to connect the two, as Nietzsche is saying, then we double the doing again and again. Okay? As he says, there's a problem in doing that. Now, both Nietzsche and later on Deleuze will recognize this problem of this doer behind the deed, and as trying to neutralize force, as trying to deaden it in some way, and even moralize force, that's to say subjectivity, as inherently moral, to try to moralize humanity as essentially moral to its very core. Nietzsche obviously is not going for that, and we'll find later on Deleuze is highly against that too. He sees a little trickery that's going on with this attempt, as they call it, reactive. Later on, during the 1960s, Deleuze's famous work on Nietzsche really captures this problem. Deleuze will go a little bit more in depth. I didn't want to go that much in depth for this video. This is kind of a little bit more of a bare bones approach. I'm going to say that for a video that will be coming out soon. But Deleuze breaks down this problem that we're seeing right now with the connection between Hume and Nietzsche and a critique upon causality and subjectivity as moment of causality, moment of substance, and the moment of reciprocal determination. And he shows a step-by-step process and how causality and later on the quote-unquote subject or subjectivity is moralized, that we're tricked into making it moral. And we see the effects, as Nietzsche's alluding to when he says the common people or popular views, how it affects us psychologically and how we blame people. In the same passage from Genealogy of Morals, first essay, section 13, he gives the famous example of the bleeding lambs accusing the birds of prey, who just, do what they do. They are pure force. There is no substratum. They don't try to repress their own instincts. They don't try to repress any other type of actions. They don't think twice. They just do what they do. Force is just that. So he looks at how this kind of reactive approach to it, of splitting force in two, affects us psychologically, how we're more resentful, we're quick to blame, we're always trying to find a doer behind the deed and blaming others. How does that affect us? Okay, for right now, I'm going to save some pretty interesting questions for a later video. I'll see you guys next time.